Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Matt Baxendell. All right, let's take a look at the Ohio State 2026 roster. Dan and I went through the depth chart projection, the two deep. We went through the entire team on Monday's show. Let's speak more in generalities here. How do you feel about the roster so far? Maybe they'll add another player or two in the portal, but we kind of know what it looks like now backs. How do you feel about the roster overall? And maybe what's a concern or two that you have about this roster?
Yeah, I think that it's going to overall be a pretty good roster this morning and this season. You know what I mean? Like everybody was panicking at one point. You remember that? They were like, "Oh my God, we've lost so many guys to the portal. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do?" The reality is, Ohio State almost always comes out of the portal better than we go into the portal. So whatever we lose, we're usually almost going to get more back. And so, were there a player or two that I would have liked to have stayed? Of course. But Ohio State also went out and pulled multiple players from Alabama. They went out and reinforced themselves at various positions like defensive tackle and wide receiver. The Buckeyes went out and they took advantage of the fact that they are Ohio State and people want to play here. And I think we've all seen the Indiana template of, well, you know what? The best thing you can do when you can't recruit 5 stars out of high school is get as many 22-year-olds that are physically mature as possible and get them on a roster. So getting a lot of these older players that are coming in now is a huge boon for Ohio State. I mean, look at it. The last 3 years, one of the oldest teams in the country has been the national champion 3 straight years. So the formula isn't load up and be full of 19-year-olds that are future NFLers. The formula is get your team to that 22-year-old average age as quick as you can and hope that you have the right mix of veterans to be able to walk away with a natty. And so Ohio State here got a lot older. Now, there's still some concerns I have, let's get to the one that everybody was worried about. I think the running joke was, well, did we get a kicker yet? Well, we got one. We got a good one from Baylor. Looks like he can actually boot the ball. Had a great first year, multiple years of eligibility. Seems like a kid that will have stick around for a while, so I'm happy about that. I think the one spot that I think I have a little bit of trepidation on right now is the defensive tackle position. We picked up Smith from Alabama. We picked up Walker from UCF. They're both good, but neither one of them are like superstar talent. They're both players that could certainly be very good players, but haven't shown yet that they are that elite player. And then factor that in with Edric Houston being good, but not really a breakout yet. Who's the 4th D tackle? Because all of our young D tackles transferred, including Jarquez Carter, who I didn't want to transfer.
Yeah, Will Smith. I guess Will Smith would be right.
Probably Will Smith. I don't think it's Jason Moore. We haven't trusted him yet, right? So, and then you get a bunch of freshmen coming in. So I think we're a little thin at D tackle again, which is where we were last year with it. And you never know. There's still a lot of people floating out there looking for homes. Maybe somebody ends up at OSU at D tackle. But I think if I had to point one spot that I have a little bit concerned about depth on right now, it's that position. I think OSU recognized it too by bringing in 2 of them. But I wouldn't say no to a third one at this point. What about you, Dave? Anywhere you think is thin other than D tackle?
I agree with you about D tackle. They got 2 good ones, as you said, in the portal. Maybe not extreme difference makers, but 2 good ones. I don't know if it's too much to ask to go get another one. It's probably slim pickings at this point. And here's the thing. I didn't like the depth last year, but at least they had a first-round stud in Caden McDonald.
Yes.
And then the depth ended up actually being a little better than I thought, even with Edric not having the year that anybody expected because Tywone Malone stepped up and Will Smith Jr. stepped up. But you had that absolute first-round stud in Caden McDonald. I don't see that player on this year's team, not just in terms of his size, in terms of his impact, or his size. I mean, they'll have Jameer Perez, who's like 360, but just his impact. I don't see anybody on this D tackle rotation that would even be like a second-day pick probably one day. Will Smith Jr. is solid, but he's undersized. Maybe James Smith.
Yeah, Smith is the one I was thinking might be a draft pick eventually.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yep.
Well, Houston doesn't. I don't think he's big enough. That's the thing. He hasn't put on the weight that you really want to see. Certainly he's not a McDonald type, right? Like you have to wonder if Houston is able to add the additional 10, 15 pounds, 20 pounds you probably want to see at that position. But I think you're looking right now at some guys that are a lot of potential, a lot of high school recruiting stars that have been perfectly good players in college that haven't really been standouts. And we all knew going into last year, McDonald, even though he wasn't the starter from the year before, was like the dog in the trenches. And there's nobody, like you said, that has that sort of resume sitting behind him. I mean, we looked at McDonald and we were like, last year, we were just like, all right, how many plays can we get out of him? Because he's so huge, right? Turned out pretty much all of them. But at the end of the day, McDonald was the guy I think we felt pretty good about going into last season. I don't have anybody that I put in the same ballpark at D tackle right now that I'm like, oh, I feel good about this.
Oh, Ken Taco Hut. It hurts. No longer basking. Just because they kicked the crap out of Michigan and still just a year removed from a national championship, I'm kind of still basking. Now, I'm not like, the glow has dimmed a bit, I will admit. All right, let's move along here. So, I'm curious how you feel about the offensive line because they got their butts kicked the last two games against two really good defensive lines. But I am bullish on this offensive line. Like, they played well during the regular season for the most part. Again, they didn't play any world beaters during the regular season. My gosh, the schedule this coming year is ridiculously tough backs. They're so veteran. They're bringing back 91 combined starts. When you look at guys like Saraveld and Montgomery and Hinsman. Hinsman started 35 games in his career already, including 32 at center. Van Sickle even has a couple starts under his belt. You have guys like Ian Moore and Padilla who haven't started yet but have played a decent amount and have looked pretty good. I just feel like Tyler Bowen needs to just coach better. Like, am I out to lunch on that? Like, I love the experience and I think and the potential of this offensive line. Phillip Daniels is another one.
Yeah, I think if this offensive line doesn't perform at an elite level this year, then I don't know if it's a good reflection on Tyler Bowen's ability to coach. We went for a coach in Bowen that we needed a good recruiter in that position at. Remember, that was the big knock on Fry, was that Fry was a great coach, but maybe couldn't recruit as well. Well, this is where Bowen has the raw material to show it. I talked about veteran status and having older men as players versus, young teenage boys that are growing into that size. Look, Saraveld was hurt against Miami. He was great all year. I'm not going to now all of a sudden say that guy can't play. He's going to be very good. Montgomery is now, I believe, in his fourth year. Mm-hmm. This will be his fourth year at OSU. Yep. He started most of last season. Carson Hinsman has been around forever, like you said. Phillip Daniels now, I think, is at something like 18 career starts after every game this year and his time at Minnesota. And he's a junior now. So you have a full upper class of starting linemen. The only position that you're not sure at is right guard, and there's a bunch of guys that could play there. I think Ian Moore finds his way on the field one way or another after seeing him get in the field. I'm like, ooh, boy, that guy was good against Indiana and Miami. It was against Miami he came in, and things settled down. But the reality is you have a veteran offensive line. This is the kind of offensive line with the depth that you hope for. I mean, there's probably 8 guys that can play on the roster that I'm looking at right now. Like 8 guys you should feel good about playing. So with the amount of veteran players and the amount of guys, like in terms of experience that they have, this should be a really good O-line. And like you said, next year's schedule is, frankly, we need to be hyping up the SEC old playbook of, it's such a gauntlet. It's so challenging. We're lucky if we only lose 2 games with the schedule that Ohio State has next year, okay? 3-loss OSU should be in the playoffs. We should start working on our script right now, Dave. So
yeah, I mean, with that schedule, there is a chance like a 9-3 Ohio State would get in. But how about we don't even go at least 10-2 and then get in there and do damage. Yeah,
OSU always wins 10 games, Dave. Don't forget that. That's something that happens like clockwork.
Yeah, Ryan Day's worst record at Ohio State is 11-2. So there we go. And Urban was the exact same way. Tress had that one season in 04. Other than that, Tress was the exact same. I mean, Tress's first season they went 7-5, but they beat Michigan and
had
a nice comeback in that Outback Bowl against South Carolina, which that Michigan game was that's still one of my favorite Michigan games. Tress will call it his shot 310 days, and they go up there and get up 23-0. Jonathan Wells. Jonathan Wells doesn't have those cramps they maybe wouldn't have made it so close in the end. He wasn't able to play in the second half because of cramps. They didn't bring his pickle juice with him.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've had a lot of people in the chat ask about offensive coordinator. That's where we will go next. Still no offensive coordinator named. What do you make of that? Because it feels like if he was going to promote from within, which hopefully he does not, he could have just done that already. Feels like he's been waiting on somebody. What are your thoughts on OC? What do you want to see happen? What are you hearing out there, Bax?
Well, here's my first thought on this. If he didn't have somebody in mind with sort of a handshake agreement, he would never have let Chip Kelly go to Northwestern. That's the first thing that popped into my head, because the easy and obvious solution here, if you wanted to do anything about it, is just run Chip Kelly back. It worked, especially once Chip sort of was in full control of the offense down the stretch. If you thought that you had a question mark or didn't know what you were going to do, Chip Kelly would have been the guy, and you could probably have brought Chip in for the playoff run. But clearly, Day has someone else in mind, or he would not have let his mentor and the guy he won a national title with as his offensive coordinator go to Northwestern. So I think there's some NFL-related stuff going on. That is my personal belief here. Is either there was a head coach that was getting fired, or there's people floating out there. You hear the name Daboll thrown around. You hear some of these other names, but I mean, that would have probably been announced already because he's not coaching right now. So I'm curious to see, because to me, the only logical answer here is that Day has someone lined up that is already coaching in the NFL and isn't done yet. And I don't know who that would be with the teams that are remaining, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I do think he knows what he wants to do with it, though, because otherwise Chip Kelly wouldn't have been allowed to go to Northwestern. But then again, the flip side is maybe Day misses and he just says, hey, Chip, here's an extra $500K, come back. I don't know. I could easily see that too.
He's done such a good job, bringing in Chip. He brought in Chip Kelly right after he brought in Bill O'Brien for like a minute. Then he brings in Matt Patricia this past year. So he's proven he can bring in some big names. I've seen some people in the chat, and I've heard this previously. What about Bill Callahan as an analyst or offensive line group? That'd be great. How about Brian Callahan as offensive coordinator, former Bengals offensive coordinator, former Titans head coach? Not a good head coach for the Titans. That was still amazingly dumb to fire Mike Vrabel and then turn around and replace him with the Bengals offensive coordinator that wasn't even the play caller. But still, maybe Brian Callahan as offensive coordinator, bring his dad in as an analyst, bring the Callahans in, could be a thing. I haven't heard that from a source. I'm just spitballing there.
It's a possibility, and that's the sort of name. I mean, so think about what Nick Saban did during his tenure at Alabama that you have Ryan Day trying to mimic here. It's bringing in NFL guys or former college head coaches that need a sort of reset button on their career. And you've seen it now with Chip Kelly. You've seen it now with Matt Patricia. And we're going to hopefully see it with some of these other big names. So if Callahan came in, sure, that's a great fit.
Oh, he's now, I guess Stefanski. That's a good hire by Stefanski. I guess Bill Callahan's with him in Atlanta. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. There you go. Everything's happening.
Well, is that Bill Callahan, not Brian Callahan, right?
Bill Callahan, I think he says dad is now at the Falcons with Stefanski.
But it's still the same kind of hire you and I are sort of expecting here. It's not going to be internal. It's going to be somebody external that has sort of independent play calling ability, because then Day can go back to CEO mode, where I think he's best right now. And let's face it too. I put a post on the front row yesterday, just kind of saying, I think the timing of Hartline's departure hurt us as much as anything, because I think OSU was sort of in a state of flux the week of the Big Ten title game, and then kind of went to something different than they did all year, and it got them out of their rhythm against Miami. That's my thought there. So bringing in somebody that allows Day to be the CEO of the team versus being the play caller and hands-on involved, I think is a big factor. And look, Ryan Day's obviously always going to be involved in the offense significantly. But, I mean, being able to be the CEO, Ryan Day, has worked really well. And I think he can't get away from that. There's no way.
That's what I hope happens. And if he does go, there are people have thrown out the name JT Barrett. I don't know. But if he does that, he has to bring in my opinion, like a seasoned offensive analyst to go along with him, like a Kevin Wilson type, that type of person. Kevin Wilson.
His name is Ron, sir. His name is Ron.
Yeah, we're on Bucknuts. We call him Ron Wilson. That's exactly right, Kevin. Quote Ron Wilson. Yeah, I mean he's an analyst that Oklahoma right now. Somebody like that. If you're going to bring in JT Barrett, but I don't know. It feels like like you said, it feels like he might be waiting because he could have hired JT Barrett already. I mean, the Bears season did just end, so maybe he's waiting a little bit, but he's shown he's not in a hurry to do this. He was not in a hurry when he hired Patricia. We'll see what happens, man. I'm confident Ryan Day is going to get a good offensive coordinator. I was told,
Me too.
I said on last week's show, last Wednesday show, I talked to a really good source last week, really good source inside the Woody, and they're like, we're looking outside the program at. They didn't say exclusively. I want to be clear about that, but they said we're looking hard outside the program at both NFL and college ranks. So we'll see. We'll see. Press Taylor's another one that people have talked about. Zach Taylor's younger brother, Press Taylor, who was the I love this. Somebody he said he should go get Zach Taylor. Yeah, there you go. Get the head coach of the Bengals to come here as the offensive coordinator. There you go. Let's kill two birds with one stone. All right. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm confident Ryan Day is going to make a good hire, and we shall see who it is. Press Taylor, the younger brother of Zach Taylor, who Press Taylor was the offensive coordinator with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know. We'll see. I trust Ryan Day, though. We'll see what happens. But that is a name that there we have a thread on Bucknuts. Somebody brought up Press Taylor. So Cliff Kingsbury's another one. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. All right. I want to get your thoughts on this. So NIL is just wild. You have these guys signing these $1 million contracts, multi-million-dollar contracts. And for a while, I don't think Xavier Lucas signed a $1 million contract. I don't know what he had at Wisconsin, but I've talked about him a lot. He goes to Miami. Wisconsin wasn't going to let him put his name in the transfer portal. So he said, okay, see ya. I'm just going to go and I'm just going to enroll at Miami. I'm going to be eligible immediately. I'm going to be a starter for the Hurricanes and play all the way through the national championship game. And Wisconsin never went after him for breach of contract or whatever you want to call it. They did sue, and this is still pending. Wisconsin has sued the University of Miami for tampering, which I'm sure I would bet my life that there was tampering. I also, unless there's a paper trail, it's like good luck proving that there was tampering. But they didn't go after Xavier Lucas himself, Wisconsin. And I think Wisconsin just didn't want to look petty. I get that. But now what are we seeing? Now we're seeing schools go after the players. The first one was Damon Williams Jr. He signed a $4 million contract with Washington. And then Lane Kiffin called him, offered him obviously more money than that, probably $6 million. And he was like, all right, I'm out. I'm going down to, LSU. I'm going to just pretend like 2 days ago I didn't sign a $4 million contract. And Washington said, we're going to sue you for that $4 million if you do that. He's like, okay, I'm good. I'm coming back. Then what happened yesterday? Darian Mensah is now being Duke saying, nope, we're not letting you go. Darian Mensah, that came out a few days ago that he was going to leave, try to go to Miami.
At the very last minute, by the way.
Very last minute. And he had just signed a $4 million, just like that's the going rate, I guess, for these guys. Damon Williams Jr., Darian Mensah signed $4 million to return to Duke where he was last year for the quote-unquote ACC champs. 5-loss Duke, the ACC champs. Duke said, nope, we're not letting you do it. We're suing you. And he hasn't come back yet, but this is going to be interesting. He's trying to transfer to a conference rival, Miami. He's a $4 million contract, and people are saying, well, he's not technically an employee. It's not going to hold up. It's like, well, what if we did the flip on that back? So I'll give you the floor in a minute. What if we flip that around? Because people are like, well, they're not technically employees, so how can it be enforced? All right, well, let's say Darian Mensah stayed at Duke, and he had this $4 million contract, whatever you want to call it, written agreement. To me, that's a contract. I love the semantics involved with all this. And let's say he played the year, and then Duke said, we're not going to pay you the $4 million. It's not a real contract. He would then sue Duke, and everybody would have his back, and he'd probably – I'm guessing. I'm not a lawyer. I'm guessing he would win. So if that would be true, if the school reneged on it and didn't play the player, doesn't the same logic apply? I'm just glad the schools are finally going after the players who sign a contract and then within days are like, no, I'm going to pretend like nothing happened.
Here's the simple answer. It's, of course, a contract. Anybody who looks at this knows it's, of course, a contract. And if you sign a piece of paper that says, I give up my right to enter the transfer portal for the next year for $4 million, you legally are required to not enter the transfer portal, right? Because I'm sure there are damages that are associated with entering the transfer portal. You've signed away that right for a sum of money. This is normal. This is very common. It's like a player in the National Football League signs a contract saying, I will play for the Cleveland Browns. And then if somebody else better, which is any other team other than the Jets, comes and offers them the same or more money, they can't just be like, screw you, Browns. No, you have a contract. You're stuck with that group. You signed the deal. That's what Damon Williams found out. That's what Mensa is going to find out here, quite simply. And this one looks especially shady because it's in the same conference. I don't feel good for the commissioner of the ACC trying to handle this one, whereas before the Washington to LSU nexus was the same axis that the Big Ten SEC war has been fought on. I fully expect Mensa's not going to be allowed to leave. And I think Wisconsin was being nice in an era that has already passed. Wisconsin in the past would have sued the player. And all these contracts with these NIL, these kids sign now, as far as I understand it, specifically say we're going to pay you X amount and you're not allowed to transfer for a period of 1 or 2 years or whatever, right? We saw this, and the smart ones have done this for a while. Remember Chase Besantis at Texas A&M was trying to leave Aggie 2 years ago to go to Ohio State, and he couldn't because his NIL deal he signed said he had to repay every cent plus interest of NIL if he went in the transfer portal. Like, that was what happened. So these are going to become a little more school protective, and they already are certainly getting there, being school protective. I think early on people were like, here's that paper, come to our school. And people didn't think about, what if the kid doesn't play for a year and wants to play somewhere? That's what we're seeing here with a lot of these freshmen, by the way, that we have that are leaving. They had a dollar amount that was probably they wanted higher amounts for, and they weren't playing. So they were sitting here going, well, I can make more money because I'm going to play elsewhere, and I'm not going to play yet at OSU. The NIL is eventually going to protect the schools as much as it benefits the students, and we're seeing that now. So, yeah, the whole Mensa thing, I didn't even care about the NCAA. Bro signed a contract, and Duke is well within their rights to enforce the contract. That's all it is.
Just like that'd be just like he'd be ticked off if he ended up playing at Duke and they said, "Nah, we're not going to give you the $4 million." Sorry, it's not a real contract. Yeah. Like, it's either a contract or it's not. I mean,
yeah,
these are wild times we're living in. I'm glad the kids are getting paid, but there's got to be consequences for actions. You can't sign $1 million contract and then, or even a contract at all. It's not even necessarily it has to be $1 million or more. It's like you sign a contract and then you just act like nothing happened. Like, no. Think about it before you sign your dotted name on the dotted line.
The only way this is eventually going to work is that if we collectively bargain these players and we admit that they're employees, that's all this is.
Or at least independent contractors, right? They don't have to be employees.
They can be they can be like the WWE. They're independent contractors, right? But to be able to set the terms and parameters of all this NIL, you have to collectively bargain with a student athletes association. Then that'll set the maximum contributions and guarantee minimum contributions. And every player that goes to a school has to admit that they're part of it. It's the only way this is going to be able to function, I think, in the long term, is you have to essentially create the same model you have for professional sports in their labor systems. And I'm not a union guy, but I just think that makes sense right now, because if you have a constantly rotating membership that's wide and disparate and a ton of money that's just a shit show right now, you have to find a way to control it. And we have a model that works, at least, that we can come up with precedent to be able to follow.
Yeah, everybody's saying it's a pro sport now, which I mean, look at the money. It is. What do all of our pro sports in America have? Player unions. Some are strong. Baseball. Some are kind of weak. NFL.
Yeah.
And the NFL leadership is just, my gosh, it's not good. All right. Last thing. All right. After we get out of here and I post the show and everything, I'm going to do my projected depth chart for the defense written on Bucknuts today. I did the offense yesterday. And also I do some analysis on each position. And they're replacing 8 starters. I'm still bullish on this defense. A lot of talent and Matt Patricia. But it's still not official Patricia's coming back. My source told me last week they're optimistic he will. But it wasn't a done deal yet, and it's still not a done deal. I think he's making absolute sure he doesn't get offered a primo defensive coordinator job in the NFL. Let's hope Patricia comes back. I think he will. My source was confident he will, but still not a done deal. Bax, your thoughts?
I think he's likely to stick around, but you never know until it's all said and done, and there's still open head coaching positions at this point in the NFL. I don't think he's a head coach candidate right now in the NFL, but I don't know what team that has an open head coaching position is going to end up with Matt Patricia as their top D coordinator target and have him think it's a better gig than OSU. Like, he could be an NFL D coordinator again if he really wanted to, right? But I don't think that's what his goal is. I think if it's a primo D coordinator job, he would take it. Otherwise, I think it makes more sense for him to keep rebuilding his prestige and image by running another kick-ass defense at Ohio State this year. And I think that's where this is going, but it's not done yet. The NFL cycle's still going on. If something crazy happens, like Buffalo has a great defense, for example, that needs a little bit of improvement. The pass defense wasn't great there this year. If the new Buffalo head coach says, man, I would love that Patricia guy, all right, maybe we're needing to be worried. But like, Patricia's not going to go leave to be the new defensive coordinator in Cleveland or something. You know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that. So I think you're probably 75% he's back next year, but you don't know for a couple weeks still.
All right, I know you have a work meeting to get to, so get to your work meeting, sir. Thank you very much. He is Matt Baxendell. Read his award-winning column every Sunday on Bucknuts. It is The Bucket. Thanks, Bax.
As always, Dave, go Bucks.
Go Bucks, baby. We'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Tell your work peeps I said hi. I don't know anybody. Well, I might. I don't think I know anybody that he works with. Bax is an engineer, for those who don't know. I'm an architect, like George Costanza. No, I'm not. I do feel like I need to go to law school and learn like contract law to do my job now. Like, seriously. It's like with everything with NIL that we're talking about, I'm like, I keep saying, well, I'm not a lawyer, but this makes sense to me. It's like, I think I need to go get you think 24/7 would pay for me to go back to school, get a law degree in contract law? You don't think they would? You guys are probably right. It's worth asking, though, right? The power of asking. Doesn't hurt to ask. Would you guys pay for my law school? And they would go like, no, you idiot. Oh, okay. Never mind. I think it'd be good for my job, though, if I learned contract law. All right. This NIL stuff is wild. I don't know. We're going to look back on this time as like the unfettered rules era, I think is what we're going to, we call it the Wild Wild West as the go-to, but like, it's crazy. Like, I'm happy for the kids. These kids are making like life-changing money. Like, I mean, to go into post-college life as already a multimillionaire is just crazy, you know? And like, I'm happy for those kids because they're bringing in millions. So they're finally getting their piece of the pie and then some. Salaries are just going through the roof. Is John Harbaugh? I believe Harbaugh is now the highest paid, right? Because the Giants gave him $100 million. I believe $20 million now. So that's just going to keep going. It's before long, we're going to have a coach making $50 million a year. You know, it's going to be like some of these like really higher paid like baseball players and stuff like that. Like, we'll get to the point like many years from now, our coaches are making $100 million a year. It is insane, the money in sports. But we love it. We love sports. So thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it very much. Dan will be with you guys tomorrow with the boys. I'll be back with you on Friday with J-Book. Head over to Bucknuts later. I'm going to have a projected depth chart for the Silver Bullets heading into 2026. And they're replacing 8 starters, but they're going to be really good on defense once again. All right. Thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate you guys very much. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.